The point again of this exercise is to find out what your, what your top 2-3 things are to bring back to the group share. Tell us about that you found out or things that UUSJ should do.
The first takeaway was that this is a 4-year congressional study action issue. So like we don't have to have all the answers in the first 6 months. So this year what I think would be a great thing to do is to do that education about what this issue is, what it encompasses, and why it's something that we should embrace. And for congregations that have a more mature reproductive justice organization like UUCA, to offer our services as a hub or a resource to other congregations who don't have that, and get you started or do a talk or whatever the case might be, and sort of coordinate that through the UUA Jessica Halpern. The other thing is that it's a really big, broad topic. And thank you for coming and being our token male, because one of the things that we struggle with is how to make this not a female-only issue. Yeah. And so another long discussion we had about was broadening this out to where is the man's role in this, what does it mean to be a successful husband, what does it mean to be a successful father, what is the definition of family as it relates to males. How are the older couples dealing with sex in, later in life? Those are the types of things that we think we can bring in that generation to this discussion.
How does that have anything to do with reproductive justice?
Well, because there are one of the groups that is actually on the increase for STIs is senior citizens.
Mm-hmm. And nursing home residents.
Yes. I mean, well,
reproducing.
But see, but this isn't just about having reproductive justice. Is an encompassing, like, it's not just this section of my body. It deals with the whole thing, and it's something that you deal with your entire life. Okay, so it's as much a part of an older couple's something that they need to think about. Maybe not how we're going to have babies, but how we're going to keep ourselves healthy. How can we support our children and our children's children in this? So I think it's definitely multi-generational, or at least can be.
I think a woman's reproductive organs are very important to men, so if they're healthy,
Well, we'll have to refrain from the discussion, but were there any other action steps?
Yes, and the other thing was that, and this is something that I'm going to take back because I've heard this now several times, which is because there are so many issues related to this, is to get them all out on the table and get them documented. Because this ranges from, supporting comprehensive sexuality education, and those types of things, all the way to, as I said, keeping aging people healthy and happy and safe. So get that all out on the table and take that back to the UUA and say, maybe we need to categorize these somewhat and put some top priorities on them.
Okay.
So that's what we did.
Great, thanks. Like with a lot of these issues, there are puzzle pieces we were talking about earlier. And, we can do them in isolation, but it's a heck of a lot better. You get all the pieces on the table and put it together, see where the connections are.
We had a couple things. We realized that not all of our folks realize that just because you now are married in DC or will be married in Maryland, that you are not married in the United States of America. So we would come up with a sample listing of some of those 1,138 federal marriage rights for our congregations to use to kind of educate people around what some of the issues still are. We'll connect with Henry here and get information on the wording of the Massachusetts law on Medicaid, and perhaps some Massachusetts organizations that worked on that, so that we can get some more information on working in that area. We also talked about connecting our marriage equality folks with the reproductive justice folks, because there's a lot of things around surrogacy and
there are.
Around the non-birth parent adoption and things that are connected across those lines. And we also talked about connecting our marriage equality folks with our immigration folks around the international couple issues.
Great, okay.
Okay, well, we had a great session on bringing us all up to date on the issue of the wealth divide and some basics on the data. And one of the things that came out was how we could advocate for changes to taxes, like has been done in the state of Maryland. They repealed the taxes on the people that are making over six figures. There's a, what was the percentage of increase in tax there? Forget, anyways, and also like reinstating inheritance taxes and things like that. Could, you know, make small steps on this issue like other issues. We could focus on fixing the electoral system, working with groups that are fighting voter suppression, and look into redistricting inequities. We could have some boycott campaigns to boycott the money in politics. Try to get shine some light on that, and to give the boycott campaign some teeth, we need to work on legislative issues that would strengthen disclosure of who is putting money into politics, because those right now are being ignored somewhat, or more than not. Also, since this is still a relatively new and complicated issue, we, especially Fairfax, has offered to their educational campaign, and we talked about developing it even more and having more people on a speakers panel. And we, in our group, decided to be a kernel of wealth divide, income inequality group to organize this educational campaign.
Yeah, what we said was that this could be a really broad-based, UUSJ organized speakers bureau, if you will, where we could, with this kernel group, and I'm throwing it open to anyone else who wants to join it, we would put together a quickie, PowerPoint that we can all take and speak from, and then make ourselves available to any other UU organization that wants us to come by and speak, and then extend ourselves out to the larger faith community.
A long
Okay,
list.
the first point was that climate change is a moral, spiritual issue, and that's our strong suit as UUs, as members of the faith community. It's also the best way to get people to actually pay attention and change. Not all the scientific head stuff, but the moral aspect of this is the compelling aspect. It reaches to everybody. It helps change people's behavior and what they're going to do. So that's our strong suit. Always lead from it, is the moral aspect of this. Secondly, following up on our closeness to Washington, we all agreed that it was really imperative for we UUs in this area anyway to be going to our Congress people. We've got Pete Starks, who's from a UU congressperson from California.
He lost his
Lost.
He did? Well, okay. Well, okay, heck with Pete Starks. But there are, again, on this, on following up on the moral thing, this unanimity of the world's religions on this issue, no sex involved, so there's unanimity of the religions on this is a powerful talking point with Congress people. And I would add that it's probably the moral aspect is probably the only way to beat the huge money coming in from the oil companies, et cetera, because it's a completely different domain and they can be clobbered on it. So letting your Congress people know, we all agreed that the public policy aspect of this is absolutely essential. Many of our congregations are already doing. Greening ourselves, our congregations, et cetera, which is great. But this public policy is needed. Another talking point is this isn't just national, but that we can also be talking to our county and state and even city or township elected officials letting them know that these issues are important to us, we're going to be voting on them, and that these go all the way down to public transportation issues. Many local issues are involved in this. And finally, I mean, we talked about setting up committees of correspondence. I think we sort of agreed that the Ministry for Earth is the proper UU funnel to go through with that, to be in communication with one another, to let other people know. And I'm just going to add in, anybody is interested in this issue, the UU UN office has the best website on climate change, certainly in the UU world and probably a lot of other places. You wouldn't think of it. UU UN office, okay? And lastly, I think I want to say, but in terms of the national thing, Bill McKibben's coming here Sunday a week, and no one pulls this together better than him. If you want to be involved in this at a national level in an effective way, get involved with 350 and Bill McKibben.
Okay, as far as advocacy, we were thinking about polling the congregations to see what their idea of comprehensive immigration reform looks like, so that we're all on the same page, and we should do this quickly. Dean mentioned Reverend Scott, who is with Voice, that this can be an interdenominational thing, and we could use this as a talking point with our congregations. Then we also talked about, and in order to poll the denominations, the congregations, we decided that we need some sort of survey. They need to have some ideas. We can't just say, what does immigration reform look like to you? So I have volunteered, and Dean's going to help me, and if you have anything, Lisa, you can jump in. We were talking about looking at like the Kennedy-McCain immigration reform that they had put together, the DREAM Act, all of those things, and look at key questions or whatever, and just do a survey, yes or no, to help them come up with the idea of what does immigration reform look like. The other idea was to have a training for volunteers on the documents needed and the application process for deferred action. So like we did at the General Assembly in Phoenix, where they had the citizenship training, we would go and get training. Not that we're lawyers, we're not going to fill out the application or do the work for them, but just know what documents